Hi, everyone. This is Caroline at the Southeast Regional Library. Welcome to our Indigenous Heritage Month program. I am joined by two very special guests today, and I'm so excited to have them because I am not an Indigenous person. And so I want to be sure that when we are talking to people of other cultures and other communities, that we are highlighting their voices and not our own. So I'm going to turn it over to them and let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Elena Spuma, and I work at the Guadalupe Branch Library. Hello, good morning. My name is Felipa Spuma, and I am the language and culture instructor for our Pascua Yaqui tribe.
Awesome. So I'm so excited to have you both here today. Thank you so much for your time and for being willing to talk to me about this. I'm very excited to hear all the things that you have to say. So we're going to jump right into our questions. So first, I just thought we could talk a little bit about your community and if you could describe it for people who might not be familiar with it.
Okay, well, our community is pretty much now surrounded by Tempe, Ahwatukee, and Chandler. And of course, Ahwatukee is part of Phoenix. So we kind of like got surrounded by the growing city, throughout the years. And, when our Yaqui people started settling in, I've seen maps that they have shared with us through the historic group or committee that they have also here in the community. And all I can see is just a few little homes, and the churches, and that was about it. And everything else is just desert, there's nothing. So that's why I say that our community now, we got stuck in the middle, surrounded by the big city around us.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I'm fairly new to Phoenix, but even since I've moved here, I've seen so much development and so much growth in our area. So it's wild to see these big patches of desert and then all of a sudden like a huge shopping plaza.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. So our community was established for our Yaqui people who had migrated to Arizona in this part of, I guess the territory back then. They were migrating they migrated to Arizona here in this part of the area, the territory from Sonora, Mexico. Now, our Yaqui people were being deported to the Yucatan Islands by the Mexican government because of their fertile lands. They were trying to get rid of them because they were going to go and, basically they were encroaching on their lands because, they didn't want them there anymore, of course. So they had to come up with a plan to get rid of our people. So some of our Yaqui people resisted and fought for their precious lands, and many more were killed in battle. Then there's the other group of Yaqui families that migrated, again, like I said, to this area. And that was probably in the early 1900s. They just wanted a peaceful life. They wanted to raise their families away from the wars and the atrocities that were happening in Sonora. So they migrated this way. Now, what I also want to share is that Guadalupe is a very special, unique community. Wherever our Yaqui people settled, one priority was to always build a church, a place where they could, have their ceremonies, a place where they could hold prayers. Our people are very devoted and faithful. And I think that's what also got them through, the hardships, the bad times that they had. The sad part of our history is what I kind of use, what our people went through. So in any place that they settled, they had to build a church. Our Yaqui people, again, are very faithful and they're devoted in practicing their religious ceremonies. Our religious ceremonies have been practiced by our people for over 500 years and probably a lot more since now we're in the year of 2021. So they've held on to their ceremonies and of course, the culture and the language. Our Guadalupe community is an incorporated town under Maricopa County. It's within the county of Maricopa, of course, and of course in the state of Arizona. We as Yaqui people are registered members and receive services from our tribe, such as educational scholarships, medical, housing, and programs such as the program that I have in the preservation of our beautiful Yaqui language and culture. And classes we offer classes for that. We do have classes for youth and adults. We also proudly still practice, like I had mentioned, in our religious ceremonies, such as our Waihma Paco, which is our Lenten season, the Santa Cruz Paco, which is our Holy Cross festivities, and the Anima Mikwame, which is the Day of All Souls, which is coming up on November 1st. Also the Itom Ay Paco, which is Our Lady of Guadalupe, she is our patron saint, and she is, our community is named after her. So, she's our patron saint. And also we hold vespers, prayers, and traditional dancers on Christmas Eve in honor of baby Jesus, as he is to be born on Christmas Day. So that's just a few, and of course there's other religious and cultural ceremonies that are held too. One thing that also is still really going strong, and it's a really big part of our community and culture within the Yaqui community and culture, is the anniversary of a loved one that has passed on. After, of course, the year after, they pass, they do a Paco, which is a festivity, and they have traditional dancers and of course prayers. And they have traditional dancers, as you can see here, the maso, which is a deer dancer, and the pacola, which is the other dancer that dances along with the deer dancer. And they keep the people entertained. They keep, family members entertained. And that festivity, that Paco, is to have the family members that they're done with the mourning part, that they're done with mourning the loved one that has passed on the year before. So there is a lot. There is a lot. I'm in my 50s, and I'm still learning. I'm still learning, and I'm beginning to understand a lot of the festivities, the ceremonies that they do. That there's always a reason behind it. It's not just that our elders or ancestors they make up. There's always a reason behind it. So and I can sit here all day and talk about it, but I'm gonna stop here.
No, I love that. Thank you so much for talking about that. I think that's really special. And I really love that kind of celebration of life after such a long period of mourning and missing your loved one. I think that's really special. That's really cool. So my next question, and this leads in very nicely. What are some of your favorite Yaqui traditions, and what have some of your favorite celebrations been to participate in? This is the favorite Yaqui traditions is the Yaqui tradition or ceremony is pretty much, of course, all the major festivities, which we call in our Yaqui language, Paco. They are very important. Mainly more is the Lenten season, which is the Waihma Paco. It is a very sacred time of the year. It is the reenactment of our, as we call again in the Yaqui language, our Itom Achay Jesucristo, which is the Passion of Christ. It is a mixture of our Catholic religion and our own Yaqui ceremonial beliefs. So it's kind of like mixed in with, like I said, with the prayers that we pray. For instance, the Hail Mary, Our Father, and other prayers that come along, within the Catholic religion. And like I said, it's also mixed in with some of our traditional ceremonial, I guess we can say rituals that, it's mixed in a whole big old, part of our Lenten season ceremonies. During Holy Week on the day of Wednesday, which we call pretty sure it's really close also to the Spanish language, we call it Tiniebla. That is where Jesus is whipped, or Jesus whips the people that are selling inside the church or close to that. Kind of like the plaza, because of course Jesus gets mad at them and says, this is a sacred place, you are making money, and all that comes with it. So here in our community, they do that too. And community members and the participants that participate in the Lenten ceremonies, they get whipped. They get whipped because they're going through the whole course of what Jesus went through especially during Holy Week. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's it's quite a experience, growing up with it,
and seeing it. And every year, like I said, after seeing it every year and being there and participating and all that, it's always as a Yaqui person, you're looking forward to it again. You're there, you see it, you feel it. So it's just a part that's within you, I guess we can say. Yeah. So going back again, that's the time where all the community members participate. Community members, they participate in these religious ceremonies, from elders, men, women, children. And again, the community people. It is a time for all community members to come together and participate in the religious processions. They attend church and listen to the sacred prayers, because there's only certain prayers that they pray during the Lenten season. Also, a community member throughout the community, the participants pick a sponsor to accompany them when they're finishing out, which is Easter Sunday. And they participate and be sponsors to the members of the Costumbre y Aura, which is we call in the Yaqui language. And the Costumbre y Aura is kind of like a depiction of the Roman soldiers that crucified Jesus. They captured him, crucified him, and also the part of the pheresis. So like I said, it's all intermixed. It's all intermixed with the Catholic religion and along with our cultural ceremonies and rituals. So they're the sponsors, the sponsors, they accompany them, and with that group, and then which we call them the fariseos. We call them in our Yaqui language the chapayecas. But the proper name for them is the Costumbre y Aura, which translates into the English language authority, the people that are in authority at that time, which that certain cultural group, they are in charge during the Lenten season. Also, community members can also be sponsors to the Tiopo Tatequipanoamec, which is a church society. So like I said, there's always, a reason behind it. There's always, there's always a reason behind each ceremonial ritual or festivity or, religious ceremonies, festivities, a ritual, whatever that they're working on or whatever that's being held. I guess we can say that. Yeah. So like I said, it's a lot. It's a lot. If you want to also, maybe one of your favorite cultural traditions or ceremonies that you like, or it's one of your favorites.
It's my favorites, especially Holy Saturday, Sábado de Gloria. I love that. That's my favorite traditional ceremony, because everybody comes together and they throw confetti, which means blessing, and I'm honored to go and see it, and I just feel blessed when they bless us and everything. So I say that's one of my favorites time of the year.
That sounds really special.
It is. I think what also is because the whole community participates. The whole community is there. It's just a gigantic celebration that they have in this small little town here. Yeah. So it's really sacred. It's really sacred for us. It's really sacred.
That's amazing. That sounds really, that does sound really special. And I think that community building is something that I wish more cultures would do. I think we've lost some of that. And I think that sounds really, really special to be able to see everyone that lives in your community and that participates in those ceremonies and things. I wish more people did that.
Yeah, exactly.
So my next question, why do you think it's important that people, especially kids, learn the history, language, and culture of their communities?
It's important because, first of all, our children are our future. They'll be filling our shoes when, we retire and we can't do the job anymore, or, they'll fill in our shoes when they become responsible adults, in the community, whether they're working, in the community, such as, the town hall, library, our tribal administration office down the street, and even be leaders and participants in our cultural ceremonies and our cultural groups. So that is important. With that, of course, knowing your history, your language, and culture creates our Yaqui identity also. I've heard that a lot too, especially from my students, that, you know, the reason that they take, you know, my classes is because they want to hold on to their identity. They want to learn their identity. You know, who are they as Yaqui people? So they want to learn their identity, the pride and honor for being descendants of our brave, proud Yaqui elders and ancestors, that they, you know, came to this part of the world, I guess we can say, for us to have a better life. And now, you know, here we are in 2021, and you know, I can say for myself that, you know, it's been good. You know, we have our schooling, we have, you know, living as American Yaquis, you know, the opportunities that are out there for anybody to, you know, to take. You know, it's there. You know, you put in your work, of course, you put in, you know, your effort. You go to school. You know, you have to put in a little bit of, you know, your own. I don't know. I guess we can say sacrifice. You know, because I know when I was going to school, I mean, I missed, you know, family birthday parties. I missed, you know, special events. But that was, at that time, was a priority for me to go to school. And you know, like I said, it's there to take, but it takes also effort on our part. but you know, I don't think it's just us. I think it's for everybody. It's for everybody. Yeah. So yes, a lot of it also, you know, the way I see it now as I'm older, it's I go back to our ancestors, to our elders, and it's also a great big way of honoring them. You know, just honoring them for what they did for us.
Yeah, I think that's something that, like, one of the reasons I asked that question is because I think it's so important for kids of all communities and all cultures to know that, you know, your grandparents or the older people in your life aren't telling you things just to tell you. A lot of times it's because it's really important, and it's to keep traditions going or to keep stories moving. And so we want to do that so that those things don't get lost. And it's really easy for those things to just kind of fade out. And so it's important, kids, if you're listening, when someone tells you something or when a grown-up is talking to you, that you really kind of take that in and appreciate the story that's being told, because it can get lost if you don't keep it moving. So yeah.
And that's the main thing. It's just like what you said, the preservation of our language and our culture. So, you know, it'll continue, you know, continue, and hopefully, you know, throughout time.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully long after we're gone, it'll be
Exactly.
still going. Yeah.
A better way to put it.
Yeah. So my next question, this will be airing in November, so it is Native American Heritage Month, and I wanted to touch on why it's important that we celebrate Native American Heritage Month, and what are some things that people who are Native or non-Native can do to honor and celebrate this month?
It's important because we are given a chance to share our community history, our culture, and the importance of our ceremonies, just like, you know, what we're doing right now. Our past and present goals. Like I said, you know, before, you know, in the early days, you know, the community of Guadalupe was here, and now we're like surrounded by, you know, the big cities. And Guadalupe has changed a lot. You know, it has progressed a lot. It's just, like I said, you know, that could also be considered as a goal. You know, it could be considered as a goal. Like I said, you know, our past and present goals. Again, going back to our ancestors and our elders, you know, bringing the family over here so we can have a better life. And, you know, for me, that's you know, that would be considered a really, you know, big goal. Again, you know, not to forget our ancestors and elders, honoring them by sharing their history, especially their cultural duties, how they serve the community. Again, keeping our culture and ceremonies alive up until this day, 2021. Also, ideas on how to display our Native American month, community events, community and school creative writings, such as in my language and culture classes, I'm going to have my students write like a short summary of their elders. And, just to start off with maybe just a few lines in our Yaqui language. And then have them, maybe do like an art project or a drawing of their own. And, that would be a beginning of sharing our Yaqui culture and language. And I'm sure there's also other things that other schools might do. When I was working in one of the public schools, we took turns as each grade level, and each teacher had to decorate the bulletin board that was up in the main office. And I traded with another teacher for the month. And I think we traded, I was October and she was November, and I asked her if she wanted to trade, and we did. And, because of course, November is Native American month. And I had my students draw, color more. We concentrated on my tribe, and we concentrated on the Sioux tribe, and we concentrated on, I think it was the Navajo tribe. So we picked like 3 different tribes, and we did little art projects, and they were first graders, so it had to be something a little bit, easy.
Oh, I'm sure they were so cute.
Yeah, they liked it. They enjoyed doing the activities. And again, even, their children that young up until adults, they enjoy it. They enjoy the information that, we'll share with them. Yeah. Will you guys do something here in the library for Native American Month?
So for Native American Heritage Month, we do displays here at the Guadalupe Library. We also have Yaqui books, but they're special. So some of them, they need to stay inside the library because this is the only copies we have. And some of them, we do have them to circulate for circulation. So if anybody's interested, I know we get a lot of customers asking for, we do have a sections for tribes. So if they ask for any kind of tribe, they can come, they're welcome to come, pick out a book, or would like to come in and just look at our special books inside the library. So that's how we do celebrate Native American Heritage Month.
That's awesome. I'm glad you guys have a special collection at Guadalupe, because I know our special collection here at Southeast is a little different. So every library across Maricopa County that you go to has a different special collection. So, and it's more unique to each area's community. So I love that you guys have that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Thank you.
So my next question, what are some things you love about your community and about being Native as a whole?
Well, our community, because was founded by our elders. Like I keep mentioning, even back in the times of hardships, our Yaqui elders did not give up. They did not abandon their language, their culture, their way of life, and most of all, their identity. Our elders started a new life in a different country. So imagine us, moving to, I don't know, China and starting a life there. What is, how does this culture work? Versus our culture, how do we survive in a totally different foreign country? So I kind of imagine it that way. So they started a new life in a different country and proudly continued their way of life. They still held on to their culture very close to their hearts until now, and like I said, and like we said, hopefully forever. I just am, really proud of our elders, our ancestors, that they never gave up. They said, this is who we are, this is our identity, and we will continue our ceremonies. And like I said, it's, even through hardships, even through the times maybe they didn't have enough money, maybe they didn't have, enough money to go and buy what they needed for their, traditional regalia. So, how did they do it? But they did it, they did it. So again, that kind of falls into, not giving up because like I said, they really hold their culture and their language close to their heart. It's just a part of them. We are we are made with that as we come into the world as Yaqui people.
I love that. If you look 20 years into the future for your community, what would you hope to see them continuing to do?
Well, first and foremost, our community, our Guadalupe community, our culture, our Yaqui culture, our Yaqui language, will still be active. It'll, be spoken. It'll still be, be known. Even if it's not, perfect. I mean, I'm not a perfect speaker, but, I can communicate. But, that's one of the main things. That will be still, our community, our Guadalupe community still be here practicing, the ceremonies. Again, the culture and language, will be alive. Like I said, our culture gives us the strength, it gives us the courage, it gives us faith. And once again, to honor our ancestors and elders. That's how I kind of explain to my students also, and of course, to younger community members that, we are here because of our elders. We are here and given the opportunities to make the best of our lives because of our elders, because they went this way, away from what was happening back home in Sonora. So I kind of make that a main thing in order, for students to understand more of how we ended up here in this part. Because I do have a lot of community members and students that ask, well, if our people are from Sonora, Mexico, then how come we live here in Arizona? So, that's what I tell them. Well, because, everything that was going on back then, our elders, ancestors brought us this way, or, they came this way so we could have a better, future generations could have a better life. So for me, that's a really big focus, I guess we can say, for our people. So again, just honoring our ancestors and elders. Guadalupe is our home. Our elders and present Yaqui community members have also contributed to the progression and development of not just Guadalupe, but Tempe, Phoenix, Chandler. I mean, because Yaqui people pretty much work everywhere. They worked everywhere. Like I said, the development of our cities in our state of Arizona. One thing that our Yaqui men, our Yaqui UM, which we call in our Yaqui language, our Yaqui men, they work with, which is what is now SRP, Salt River Project. And again, back then when the city was getting developed, they were hired. The Yaqui men were hired for the labor part of building the canals, building the irrigation and the water system, because our state was growing. So they had tried to recruit other races, such as Puerto Ricans and other different races. Also, I believe they reached out to the Navajo tribe, but the Navajos, they couldn't make it here in the heat because it was just too hot for them. And where they live up north, it's cooler. It's really nice. I mean, that weather up there is nice.
Yeah.
So, from what I heard through oral history from my elders is that, a lot of other, different races they just couldn't take the heat, where versus our Yaqui men were already used to it. And they're the ones that, took more part and helped build the canals, the water system. And as a matter of fact, also Mill Avenue Bridge in Tempe. Mill Avenue Bridge was built by a group of Yaqui men laborers, as we call them. And they also had a big Paco. They had a big Paco, and which is a festivity. They had prayers, they had food, they had the traditional dancers there. And it was just a way of, how they say in English, they, is it commemoration or like the baptizing, baptizing a certain structure. So it'll be there, for the longest time.
Yeah.
Kind of like that, they did a big old dedication, like a dedication. Yeah. So, now I kind of think, I think about it and I say, well, throughout the whole floods back in the 1980s here, a lot of the bridges got washed away. And, you know, Mill Avenue Bridge is still here. And a lot of the people here, Arizona natives, you know, in this area, Tempe and Guadalupe, and they call it the Old Faithful because it has never, you know, broken down or water hasn't washed it away. So that's why they call it the Old Faithful. But I truly believe in my heart. I truly believe in my heart it was because of the dedication they made with the traditional dancers and just the faith and you know, blessing it and for it to be strong and never be, you know, never how should we say it? Never get destroyed. Yeah, never get destroyed.
That's awesome. I'm never going to be nervous going over the Mill Avenue Bridge now.
There you go. Yeah.
I'll just know it's good.
When you go through it, you'll be like, oh,
I'm safe. I'm good.
yeah.
That's cool too, because I didn't know who had built the bridge, and I think it's important that we know how much different communities have contributed to the growth of Arizona, because we kind of forget, you know, we just see the canals and know that they're there, but we don't know who put in all the hard work to make them be there. And in a state where, you know, we worry about water, those are there and those are reliable. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And proudly to say my dad worked with, back then it was called the Water Users Association, which is now Salt River Project. And my father worked there, and also my maternal uncle worked there. And again, you know, a lot of other community members work there too. I do have a picture. And maybe, you know, we can send it to you.
Yeah.
And, you know, we'll kind of point out, of course, my dad there. And, but yeah, you know, there's a lot of community members that are there. But yeah, they took part and, you know, they contributed to the development of you know, this area. Phoenix, Tempe, Guadalupe, Chandler. I mean, pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's good that we talk about it and that we know about it.
Yeah.
My last question for you: what is something that you think everyone should know about being Native?
Native people have their own unique way of life. Of course, you know, it includes their culture, their language, their beliefs, their ceremonies. Natives are also known as First Nation people. Many tribes have held down to their language and culture also. Natives are proud and are the original people of our great nation here in the United States of America. It's just a lot. It's a lot to be proud of. I know that during the summertime, I take classes with kind of like a cohort of Native American teachers. And, you know, we get together, we have classes, we share our ideas, and, you know, we kind of stay in communication, which I really enjoy. This past summer, I kind of like work with a Sioux gentleman that's from Sioux tribe. And we just shared stories and a lot of some of the stories from different tribes, they're kind of similar to our stories. They kind of have also the same beliefs. They also have a lot of the myths and legends, like this book that we have from our tribe. And, you know, it's just nice. It's just nice to kind of like get together and collaborate, I guess I can say, with other natives too, and just share our own traditions, our own culture, our own language. And it's, you know, it's nice. It's really nice. And as Yaqui people, I always say, as Yaqui people, speaking for my tribe, you know, we're not selfish. We're not selfish. We will get together with, you know, a group, a person, whoever wants to know about our tribe, because we are, you know, we're proud. We're honored that, oh, they want to know about us. Of course, you know, of course we can tell them. We have so much history. Like I said, you know, I can sit here all day and talk about it. But you know, again, you know, if somebody comes up and asks me, hey, I want to know about, you know, your tribe, you know, where did, you know, your people come from? You know, anything. And like, of course, come in, sit down. And, you know, like I said, we're not selfish. We will, you know, share. We will share whoever wants to know about us, whoever wants to, you know, learn about our ceremonies. In fact, our ceremonies, any ceremonies that are held they're not only for our tribe, they're for everybody. They're for worldwide. The first Friday of the Lenten season, our spiritual leader, which in our language we call him Mamahto, he has his speech. He speaks before any prayers start and before any processions at the first Friday of Lent, and he says these prayers, these long nights, these cold nights, these hot days, the hunger that you will pass, the thirst that you will pass, also, just like our Jesus did during his 40 days and 40 nights. He says, you are going to suffer that too, especially if you're a participant in the Lenten season. He says, you are going to pass through that, but we're doing that not only for our people and our community here in Guadalupe, he says, we're doing it for everybody, the whole world, he says, all the way from here to all the way to the Holy Land in Jerusalem, he says. So it's, like, okay, no wonder, we're that selfish. We're happy to share. Whoever wants to get to know us.
That's awesome. And that was actually something I was going to ask, because I know as a kid, and I encourage kids out there that are watching this program to do this too. I'm from upstate New York, so I participated and got to see a lot of really cool ceremonies and festivals of mostly like the Iroquois people and the Seneca people. And that was something that as a kid, I was just like, wow, this is so cool to be able to see somebody else's traditions and to be able to see what other people do to celebrate things. So kids watching this, I encourage you to talk to people in your community and talk to people that you don't know and people that have different cultures from you, and get to know them and get to know what they love and what they celebrate, just like we're doing today, so that you can just understand it and appreciate it more.
Exactly. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today and for helping me put on this program. I'm so excited for it to air and for everybody to see it and learn more about the Yaqui people. And I really appreciate you being here.
You're welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for inviting us. And we're here to serve anybody. Feel free to get in contact with us if anything else comes up. We're here for you guys.
Awesome. Yeah. And be sure, if you're watching the program, to stop by Guadalupe and check out the special collection too, if you're interested in learning more.
Yes.